A lot of information has dropped after a recent interview with Ted Kravitz and Mike Crack. Something going into the lines of the FIA kind of secretly banning something on an Aston Martin. Now, what was this ban? It's looking to be something within a loophole on the front wing. This is something that is now being recently discussed and currently a rumor, but there's a lot of information. How does Ted Kravitz know this? Why is this happening to them? How their performance has really just gone down into the dumps, even after a pretty decent Belgium, and the upgrades that are coming. We're gonna get all into it in this video. Starting with this, really this secretive whole entire thing happening with Aston Martin. Where did this performance go? And what is this information that Ted Kravitz knows? And why did he bring it up to Mike Crack? Now, Mike Crack, Aston Martin's team principal, he has been very adamant on the team having constant development through the whole entire year. And they did bring a new front wing into Spain. Spain being the front wing when they brought that, Spain wasn't a great Grand Prix, but after that they go into Canada and have a very strong Grand Prix with the same front wing. Now, since Spain though, here is a little graphic showing all of the really front wing specs that they had before going into Spain. Looking here, you can see the different configurations. Like through Baku, they have a different configuration. In Monaco, they obviously have a different configuration. Saudi, Australia, Miami. All of these were different configurations. Now, obviously, as you see here, configure 1 is all the same, configure 2 is all the same. But then they end up going into the Grand Prix, which is the Spain Grand Prix, and have a different front wing. From there, they keep it the whole entire time. Only Silverstone had a different one where it was a more unloaded front wing, but clearly that wasn't a great Grand Prix for them either. And Ted Kravitz, specifically in this interview, brings up to Mike Crack, talking about have the FIA quietly close something, has something happened with the front wing. So clearly he knows some information. I'll play the clip right now.
There was a change mandated to the front wing in particular that had an effect on the car's performance?
I cannot confirm.
Okay, but you wouldn't deny that as well? That there was a
I cannot
there
confirm
was a
it.
change
Cannot confirm. I cannot deny.
Made by the FIA asked for a change.
No,
to the front
I
wing.
cannot confirm that.
Okay. You can't deny it either.
We have not made a change to the front wing. If you go through the documents, you see that there has not been a change to the front wing, so I think there is not much in it.
That's just an upgrade document, I guess, yeah.
Knowing this information, I mean, Aston Martin came into the year really knowing that they have some loopholes, really, that they're not necessarily hiding something, but they figured some stuff out. And this is on the Autosport podcast too, where it's being talked about it being quietly closed by the FIA. Now, we know them to be doing stuff like this anyways, and with the Ferrari year, we still to this day don't know what was the punishment and what they had to do with that whole entire engine thing. So it wouldn't shock me that they kept it kind of swept it under the rug and did not have more information upon what they did. I mean, I looked into the front wings going from really the Bahrain Grand Prix to Spain and really what else is left. That's how I have this up on the screen, really the configurations that we've had throughout the year. It doesn't seem like anything creative. The only thing that I can kind of think of is really the outwash part as to how every other team is doing it, but Mercedes were the first to really do that. They weren't really penalized for it. There was nothing really against that. And then last year, Mercedes had that kind of, well, now Ferrari is running on their front wing with those whole entire really divots in the front wing. Aston Martin has nothing like that. So what could this be? I guess it could be maybe going into the nose, some type of configuration, I guess, on it. Maybe the FIA saw this as not great. Maybe the way that the front wing was feeding into the underfloor. That's another thing. We just saw the underfloor of the Aston Martin car, and it seemed pretty basic looking at it from that angle. Now, you can't really tell, and you can't give it, I guess, a good image of how that actually looks without being able to see really the full underspec, kind of like we saw with the Mercedes, the Red Bull, and the Ferrari. It's hard to really tell here how innovative or how complex this design is, and complexity doesn't necessarily mean results either. It really depends on simplicity, can sometimes even bring crazy results out of it. It's crazy to think that this is kind of happening behind the scenes and Ted Kravitz knows this news and only really gives us a glimpse of have the FIA kind of mandated something towards that front wing for you to actually change it. Now, going into this, if we look into the really how fast has Aston Martin been through the whole entire season, we see in Bahrain and Saudi that they were towards the top. Now in Australia and in Baku, Ferrari has the car just by a little bit, but then in Miami, Monaco, and in Canada most recently, they were the second fastest car, and it literally getting to it within a tenth with Red Bull on tracks that were actually strong. Now we look into Hungary, where if you go off of the data, Hungary should have been a splendid track for them. They are off the pace. Now what does this mean? Has the FIA intervened? Have they kind of closed the case here with Aston Martin? I'm gonna tell you this. I think this theory that's being thrown out here with the whole front wing and kind of the FIA quietly closing this, I don't necessarily believe this to be the reason why their performance has fallen off. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Could this be true? It's possible. We'll probably get a lot more info down the line. Maybe we won't get anything. Maybe it'll be stay close here. But the actual upgrades themselves have not worked. They've lost a lot of downforce on the car. They've gained less drag. That's why Belgium was actually pretty good. But the actual downforce on the car has not been efficient. And it's been kind of the common theme with other teams. Mercedes went through the same problem with the W14. The W13, downforce monster, and then W14 ends up coming out like this. Fast in a straight line, but losing a lot of downforce. Now, Aston Martin's kind of going through the same thing. It's really got to do with the floor. They have to get a better floor, which is part of the next conversation that I wanted to talk about. There are major upgrades coming for this team in Zandvoort. It is part of their next big package. Talked about this in the video before though too, but there's a little bit more information as to where this is going now. Now, their emphasis on where their performance is going to be found and how they're going to fix their current problem of having a little downforce, but I guess little downforce, but also a little drag. You always need a little bit of drag, but it's got to be good drag on the car. Now, the floor is something that they are emphasizing to be really the underfloor of it will be an emphasis for this car, and obviously it should be. That's where Red Bull gains most of their performance, so I would hope that Aston Martin goes down this route. They also say engine cover and side pods, and they were one of the teams talking last year. They emphasized how important it is to have side pod performance and really extracting the best out of that. Now, there is obviously more to gain. What they've done with this slide pod right now is obviously not working in comparison to what they had before, and bringing a couple of changes, revising that, working upon what they had, the downforce monster, the real gravel muncher, before. They need to get more into that zone rather than out of it. But losing drag is a good thing, so I guess they're stepping up in one way but losing in the other. They need to find that great balance. That's what Red Bull has, and no other team has that emphasis on their car. It's always a mix in between, which is not good enough, or they're more one way, less the other. Williams, no drag, no downforce. No drag, no downforce. Now, if you look at a team like Mercedes last year, I will use them because their floor gained a lot of performance there. They had a very good floor, but the top of the car wasn't matching. Now, Red Bull has a perfect match with its upper and bottom floor. They need to make the side pods and underfloor work in unison to gain that suction for the downforce, but also less drag. Hence the undercut, hence the way that the floor is made with the Venturi tunnels being a lot bigger on the Red Bull. A lot of things go into combination. Hopefully Aston Martin picks up on it, and Tom McCullough has already hinted that they've been looking into those pictures and taking a lot of emphasis on it. So I hope that this floor upgrade comes to be very similar, or at least along that concept that the actual Red Bull car has, because that is where they will gain performance. And I do think this team will be back. I think this is actually interesting news in both ways. But I want to hear your thoughts down below after hearing the conversation. What is being talked about? Do you think the FIA intervened? And do you think this is the reason for the loss of performance? Not the tires that Alonso hinted at in the beginning. Let me know your thoughts down below. Please leave a like, subscribe, it would mean the world, and peace.